Well, hi again, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Love Letters to Pam, the Jack Church Show. And of course, I'm your host, Jack Church. Now, I'm still on vacation in California when I'm putting this podcast together, and I swear, I was not going to do any programs while I was on vacation, but this is now the second one I've done since I've been here. Basically, because some amazing things have been happening that I feel are important to share with you as you continue through your grief journey of loss as well. Now, today I want to talk about scrolling. We now live in a society of scrollers. You know what I'm talking about? They're on the Facebook feeds, the Instagrams, the Twitter accounts, the cell phone, whatever it is. And you just scroll and you scroll and you scroll. You go past dozens, maybe hundreds of different pictures and stories and videos and things like that until maybe one catches your attention and you stop and you may look. You may listen for, say, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, then you scroll on again. The vast majority of people who run across these podcasts and where I put the videos on the YouTube channel, they'll scroll on by, unless they've been deeply affected by loss. For those of us that have been affected by loss, when we're scrolling, we see something about loss, we may stop and check that out. However, again, this is not necessarily a good thing in society. We're all just rolling through life. Until something directly affects us, we don't really pay attention. We give a little lip service and that's about it. Oh, we may put signs in our yards, put bumper stickers on our cars and yell and scream about how much we care, but what are we really doing to help the situation? Now let's roll forward. I'm on my vacation now. I'm doing a lot of hiking here along the central coast of California. Again, I've mentioned before, favorite place Pam and I ever live. Can't afford to be here now other than for this visit, but it is still a spectacular place to be. So I'm up on a trail today in the hills above the Pismo Beach area. It's a place called the Pismo Preserve. It was under development when Pam and I were last living here, so we never quite got a chance to hike those particular hills, but we've hiked all across the area. So I get out on the hills there, on the trails that is, and I'm walking along, I'm getting ready to do, I think it was about a 5.5 mile hike that I was going to be doing. And I'm passing by people. It's like I'm scrolling. We're going past people, hi, hi. Every now and then wave. Some people say hi, some don't. Again, it reminded me of scrolling. I see them, but we're not connecting at all. And that's not to say, though, that we're going to stop and talk to everybody we see on a trail. We all know that's just not possible. But every now and then, something happens that may get your attention. And this was what happened to me. Scrolling, going along on the trail, and I see a woman in the distance approaching who has a backpack on. As she goes past me, she says to me, "How you doing?" And I go, the usual thing. I go, "Oh, I'm fine." Then for some reason, I stopped, I turned around, and I said, "Do you really want to know how I'm doing?" She goes, "Yeah, I really do." And I know I've told these stories before, but I did. I said, "Well, I'm kind of in a funny place right now." I said, "I feel good being up here, but I'm also a little sad at times because I lost my wife a little over 2 years ago, and this was our favorite place to live." And I said, "So being up here, I sure wish she were here with me." And she goes, "Wow." She goes, "That's really sweet." But she says, "I'm sure it's hard too." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I find myself kind of moving forward." And I said, "I've actually got a little podcast that I do about grief and loss. I've got a YouTube channel." So I said, I try to keep pushing forward, but it's hard." But I said, "Well, what about you? You asked how I'm doing. How are you doing?" She looked at me and she goes, "I'm terrible." I went, "I am so sorry." I said, "Did you lose someone recently?" She goes, "Yeah, I did." She says, "Myself." I said, "Yourself?" I said, "What's going on?" I then moved in closer to her. We're now close to each other talking. She goes, "Well, I tried to end my life not long ago." She goes, "But I was unsuccessful." I went, "Oh, I am so very sorry to hear this." I said, "I truly am." She goes, "You know, though," she says, "I think God meant for me to run into you today." I told her, I said, "I think so too." We started talking a little bit more. about loss and how difficult it can be. And I told her, I said, I said, as hard as it was for me to lose Pam, I said, the thing that I had to learn was that God still had purpose for me here on this earth. And so that's kind of why I do what I do now. And I said, I can assure you, you still have great purpose here on this earth. And I'm so happy that you were unsuccessful in ending your life. She goes, what's funny about it all? She goes, I'm actually studying now to be a therapist. And I said, you know what? You're going to be an unbelievable therapist. Because, now excuse my language here, you've been to hell and back. You've been on the edge of almost ending your life, but you didn't do it. That's a real life experience that when you become a therapist, you'll be able to share that with someone who too is struggling with their life right then. And I find that those of us who've actually had these terrible experiences often make the best therapists, whether it's a professional therapist or me, the amateur therapist. I told her, I said, until I lost Pam, as awful as it was, I didn't truly understand what loss was like. And I said, now I'm comfortable talking with other people about it and how we keep pressing forward. And you're just going to be so wonderful at doing this. And she had tears in her eyes the whole time. And she goes, I sure hope so. I sure hope so. And I said, you will. And I tell you what, I am so very glad that we met today. She then told me that her marriage of over 25 years is in trouble as well. But she's got kids and she's got grandkids. Her husband has grown distant from her, so to speak. And she says, he's all I've ever known. She says, it's like we grew up together. We got married really young. I said, we did too. I told her, I said, and her name was Melissa. I don't know if I mentioned that. Her name was Melissa. And I said, Melissa, I don't regret 1 second of any day of my marriage to Pam. And I said, I don't want you to give up on your marriage. I said, your husband, he's just got to come. He's just got to hold you. He's got to love you. You've got to love him back. And you guys have got to find a way to get back on track. And she agreed. She needed that. We then talked a little bit about, I told her a little bit about where I work. And I said, we actually have a pastoral team that's on staff 24 hours a day. And I said, you can call in and talk to them anytime about anything. And I think she appreciated that. Then I did something that I do every now and then, but I don't do it on a regular basis. I asked her, I said, can I pray for you right now? Here we are on this trail in the mountains above Pismo Beach, 2 broken people. And I began to pray for her. But it was a prayer like I've never felt before. I truly felt the words that were coming out of my mouth were God's words. He just gave me the right thing to say then and there with this woman. And I prayed for a couple of minutes with her. And we then hugged. And we both agreed what a great day it was. And the reason it was a great day was we were scrolling, and then we stopped. And then we looked. And then we listened. And it made a difference in both of our days. And I told her too, I said, Melissa, I'm not just saying this. A lot of people say, well, I'll pray for you. I really will. I will remember Melissa, as I do other people who I often encounter. And maybe you'll think of Melissa as well. But we also want to pray for you too, because there are a lot of needs out there right now. Now fast forward to later in the day, and I want to mention something. I then went over to an office where my wife used to work. I wanted to drop in and see a guy that she worked with there. He was a super nice man. And unfortunately, the office was closed early for the weekend. In the meantime, there was a guy in the building who I kind of recognized, who I realized he was the owner of the building. And he kind of recognized me as well. He goes, how do I know you? And I said, well, my wife used to work in this building. And he goes, where is she? And I went, well, unfortunately, she had to go to heaven about 2.5 years ago. And then he used some kind of crass language. I won't get into it. And kind of blew it off a little bit. And he goes, show me her picture. So I showed him her picture. He goes, she was too young. Way too young. I've been married over 50 years. I guess I ought to pay attention to my wife a little bit more. And I went, yeah, you really should. I said, because the one thing that's going to happen is one of you will die, and eventually both of you will die, actually. And I said, it's something that, you need to, be prepared for. He said a few other little crass things. It was kind of awkward. Some people, they don't know how to talk about loss. They don't want to even think about it. And I think he was in complete denial, not sure about his faith, not going to judge him or whatever. But I quickly sensed that he's one of those people in life that's scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Until it happens to him, he probably won't stop, look, and listen. So that's about it for today. We all need to work on that aspect of our life of the scrolling, 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 and look and listen. But I'm going to bet you that most of you who are watching or listening to this program right now, you've experienced some type of loss, and you're excellent at stopping, looking, and listening, and being a blessing to others. Because remember, we're still here with purpose. That's about it. Again, thanks for supporting this podcast, also supporting our YouTube channel. Continue to drop those comments and reviews as well from your podcast providers, and keep subscribing as well. Until we do see you that next time, as I always say, make it a great day. Better yet, a better tomorrow. And bye now from the beautiful Central Coast of California.